My name is Miles Carter, and last month I earned something I never thought I would. Something that should have mattered. After 15 years at Briarwood Foundry, 12-hour shifts, busted knuckles, double pay on holidays, and not one damn complaint, I was promoted to operations supervisor. Not temporary, not acting. Real title, real race. It came with a gray laminated badge that didn't smell like sweat, a reserved parking spot near the east gate, and an office with walls that didn't rattle when the forge fired up. I should have felt proud. I should have felt seen. I came home late that night, a pizza box in one hand and the letter from corporate still warm from the printer in the other. Delia was curled up on the couch, legs folded beneath her, scrolling through her phone like the rest of the world didn't exist. Her glass of red wine was sweating on a coaster I built for her last Christmas. She didn't look up. "I got it," I said, standing there trying not to grin like a damn schoolboy. "They made it official today, operations supervisor. Full benefits, 5-figure bump and pay." She blinked at me, not even a full blink, just the slow kind. Like maybe she didn't hear me or didn't want to. Then she offered a smile so faint it felt like a leftover. "That's great, honey." That was it. "No, I'm proud of you." No hug. Not even a toast with that wine she kept swirling like it had secrets in it. She just turned her eyes back to her phone, thumbs tapping out something more interesting than the man who'd been breaking his back for years to give her a better life. I stood there for a few more seconds, like maybe if I gave her time to process it, she'd say something else. But the silence stretched, tight and ugly, until the microwave beeped in the kitchen. I took my box of lukewarm pizza and went upstairs. Then came the dinner. Delia had organized it, said it was just a little something with her family to celebrate. I should have known better. Her brother Ree was there, grinning, like always, sipping on that top-shelf bourbon he only brought out when he wanted to make sure everyone noticed how expensive it was. Her parents, Darlene and Kin, had driven down from Kington. Even her cousin Jasmine showed up in heels too high for a family table and a dress that looked like it cost more than our water heater. The food was good, I'll give him that. Delia made the baked mac the way I liked it, and her mother brought those damn Delid eggs I could never say no to. But all through dinner the talk was about Trent. Delia's ex-Trent just bought a new condo downtown. Her dad said at one point like he was proud of him. He's in management now too. Corporate level. I chewed my chicken and stayed quiet. We made it to dessert before it happened. Ree stood up, raised his glass, and grinned like a man who'd been waiting all night for his moment. "Here's to Miles," he said. Guess Briarwood needed a token idiot to fill the chair. Laughter. Real full-throated laughter. Dia's laugh was the loudest. I looked at her. She didn't even glance back. I felt something inside me twist, something that had been coiled too tight for too long. I could feel the back of my neck flush, and I focused on the flickering candle in the center of the table just to stop myself from reacting. Just a joke, I told myself. Just Reese being Ree. Then Jasmine giggled and added, "Still think Delia peaked with Trent, though." And right then, as if God himself was playing a cruel trick, Darlene raised her glass and said to Trent, "The one that got away." Glasses clinked, smiles, even a slow clap from Ree. Delia, she didn't flinch. She toasted, drank, smiled. I didn't say a word. I pushed my chair back, slow and quiet, stood up and walked out. No slamming, no shouting, just left. The Kentucky air outside bit at my skin, but I didn't notice. I got into my truck, hands trembling, heart heavy. The street lamps buzzed above me, and I sat there staring through the windshield, trying to convince myself I was overreacting, that I was being sensitive, that maybe they didn't realize how it landed. But deep down I knew better. Later that night, I got the text. Delea from upstairs while I was still in the garage pretending to organize my old tool shelf. Don't be dramatic. It was a joke. That was her response. Not sorry. Not they went too far. Not I should have said something. Just that a joke. They laughed at me like I was some sad clown in a uniform that didn't fit. Laughed at my hard-earned promotion like it was a participation trophy. And the woman I married, the one I thought would always have my back, laughed right along with them. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I lay on the old couch in the den, staring at the dark ceiling, hearing the echo of their voices in my skull over and over. Gus Briarwood needed a token idiot to Trent, the one that got away. Don't be dramatic. I wasn't being dramatic. I was being dismissed, disrespected, erased. And in that quiet room, with only the ticking clock and my own breathing for company, I decided something I hadn't dared let myself consider before. Maybe the man they laughed at wasn't the punchline. Maybe he was just done. And maybe next time I wouldn't just leave the table. I'd flip the whole damn thing. I didn't go to work the next morning. Didn't call in either. I just got in the truck before sunrise, hands shaking as I turned the key and drove south. No real plan. Just out. Out of that house. Out of that silence. Out of that marriage. I wasn't sure I was even in anymore. The roads were still wet from last night's rain. Mist hanging low over the asphalt like smoke. The headlights cut through it in a weak, almost reluctant beam. And for a moment, I wondered if I'd even packed my wallet. I didn't check. I didn't care. I must have driven for 4 hours before I realized where I was headed. Somerset. My uncle's old cabin sat near the lake, tucked behind a line of crooked trees and blackberry bushes. It had been years since I'd been there, but something about the gravel crunching under the tires in the side of that weather-stained porch made my chest loosen for the first time in weeks. My Uncle Harvey died 8 years ago, left the cabin to the family. My cousin Jaden was supposed to keep it up, and while we hadn't spoken in years, I knew he had too much guilt in his bones to let the place rot. Sure enough, the gutters were clear, the lock still stiff but working. I stepped inside and let the door shut behind me with a hollow thug. It was dusty, the kind of dust that clings to forgotten places and things, but it wasn't dirty. A few spider webs in the corners, some scuff marks on the floor, but otherwise the place looked like it had been waiting for someone waiting for me. I dropped my duffel bag on the old corduroy couch, kicked off my boots, and stood there in the quiet. No TV, no buzzing phone, no glances across the room that felt like accusations. Just silence. I grabbed a beer from the rusted mini-fridge, lukewarm, stale, but I didn't care. Sat on the porch with my legs stretched out and the bottle sweating in my hand. The woods rustled around me, birds calling out like they hadn't seen another human in days. I leaned back in the old chair and stared out at the trees, the lake just beyond them glinting like a sheet of steel in the morning light. And that's when the question hit me. Not suddenly, not loud, but quiet. Too quiet. When did I stop being a man? When did I stop being the person who was earned, not pitted? When did I go from the man who fixed everything with his hands to the man people laughed at over dinner like a broken tool in the junk drawer? Delea hadn't called, not once. Not a single buzz or, "Where are you?" or "Come home." The woman I married, who used to kiss my knuckles after long shifts, didn't seem to notice I was gone. Or worse, she noticed and didn't care. That silence, it said more than any argument ever could. It told me exactly where I stood. It told me I was furniture background, the guy who paid the bills and took the jokes. I thought about that night again. The laughter, the clinking glasses, the way Dea's smile curled at the edges when her family roasted me alive like it was just sport. And the worst part? I didn't defend myself. I let it happen. I let them carve into me like I didn't bleed. But out here on this porch with no one watching, I felt something else stir beneath the hurt. A slow, quiet burn. The kind of heat that comes not from anger, but from recognition. Recognition that I had let this happen. I gave them the benefit of the doubt one too many times. Took the hits and told myself I was being patient, being mature, being a man. But real men don't sit at tables where they're not respected. Real men don't stay where they're only useful when quiet. The sun slid higher in the sky. I pulled out my phone finally. No missed calls. One text from my supervisor, Angelo. "Everything okay? We good for the teen meeting Monday?" I stared at it for a while. My thumb hovered. Then I typed, "Taking a few days. Personal." He responded 2 minutes later. "Got it. Take care of yourself." At least someone noticed. I didn't text Dia, didn't tell her where I was. I wanted to see how long it would take before she cared enough to ask. By nightfall, still nothing. I charged my phone in the kitchen using an old outlet that sparked when I plugged it in, then curled up on the couch under a scratchy wool blanket. I didn't sleep well. The quiet was loud, and every creak in the floorboards felt like a memory I hadn't asked to remember. The next morning, I shaved. I don't know why. Maybe to remind myself I still had a face worth seeing. The mirror over the bathroom sink was cracked at the corner, but the man staring back looked clearer than he had in months. There were bags under my eyes, lines on my forehead I hadn't noticed before. But there was also something new. Focus. Maybe even resolve. Around noon, Jaden showed up. I heard the truck first, the sputter of that engine he refused to replace, and then the screen door creaked open. He stepped inside without knocking, holding a six-pack and a bag of chips like it was a damn cookout. "You alive?" he asked. "Barely." He looked at me, nodded once, then set the beer down. "Fridge still sucks." We didn't talk about Delia. We didn't talk about anything, really. Just sat on the porch like we used to when we were kids, watching the trees sway and making up names for the birds we couldn't identify. But in that silence, something healed a little. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, or what I was even going to do next. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going back to the house that didn't notice I was gone. Not until I remembered who I was. I pulled back into our driveway 4 days later. The tires crunched against gravel like they were protesting my return. And for a moment, I just sat there behind the wheel, staring at the front door. The porch light was still on, burned all night, every night, like it always did, whether I was there or not. Nothing had changed. Same wreath Delia hung 2 Christmases ago. Same potted plants she never watered. Same front step with the hairline cracked she kept asking me to fix even though she never said thank you when I did. I stepped inside bracing for some reaction. Something. Anything. But Delia was in the kitchen humming. She didn't jump when she heard the door. Didn't ask where I'd been. Just glanced over her shoulder. Offered a smile like I'd returned from a quick jog and turned back to whatever she was stirring. "Hey," she said. "Want dinner?" I made cobbler like nothing had happened, like we didn't just let 4 days pass without a word, like I hadn't left wondering if we were even still married. I looked at her hands, how casually they moved, lifting the wooden spoon and scraping the bowl's sides like a woman at peace. Then I looked at her phone face up beside the mixing bowl, and my chest pulled tight. Trent's name lit up the screen in a soft gray notification banner. I didn't say anything, just walked upstairs, took a long shower, and lay on the bed with my eyes on the ceiling fan, letting it spin and spin, as if it could pull the tension out of my body and fling it somewhere far away. That night, after she fell asleep with a smirk still clinging to her lips, I reached for her phone. It wasn't locked. It never had been. That used to mean trust. Now, it just meant arrogance. I opened the message thread. There it was, Trent's name, bold and familiar. Dozens of messages every few hours, it seemed. I scrolled old photos, jokes, flirty texts sent during work hours. One of them read, "Remember this spot?" Attached was a picture of our dog sitting on the bluff at Elhorn Lake. Except Trent was in the background. That was supposed to be our place. I'd taken Dalia there the first summer we met. I taught her how to skip stones on that water. Now she was sending that photo to her ex like it was a shared secret. Another picture. Dalia in that dark green dress she wore to the family dinner the night they all laughed at me. She'd taken a mirror selfie. Below it, Trent had typed, "You wore that for me, didn't you?" She responded with a winking emoji and the words, "Maybe." Winky face. I felt sick. And then the kicker made your favorite cobbler today. Miss you. She had made cobbler that night, and she offered it to me first like I was the one she'd made it for. Like I was still the man who mattered in this house. But I wasn't. Not anymore. I closed the thread, placed the phone exactly where I found it, and lay there in the dark with her soft, rhythmic breathing beside me. I didn't touch her, didn't shift the bed, just stared at the ceiling, letting my anger rise in slow waves. Controlled, measured, patient, because now I wasn't just dealing with betrayal. Now I was studying a pattern. She laughed when Ree called me a token idiot. She toasted her ex. She hadn't called me when I disappeared for 4 days. And now she was stirring batter in the kitchen while texting another man about missing him, wearing a smile she didn't give to me anymore. I started noticing the little things. How she always kept her phone face down around me except tonight. Maybe she got careless. Maybe she thought I wouldn't care anymore. Or worse, maybe she thought I was too stupid to understand what was happening. At breakfast the next morning, she acted like a sitcom waifu. Scrambled eggs, toast with strawberry jam, and that same humming like she'd swallowed a tune she didn't want to share. I thanked her. She smiled like she deserved a prize. She mentioned going to her sister's baby shower next weekend, said she might stay the night. I nodded, not because I believed her, but because I was listening now, watching. Because when someone lies to you, you can either react with rage or you can sharpen the blade. The next 3 days, I played my role perfectly. I came home on time. I asked about her day. I fixed the dishwasher she claimed was leaking and let her pat me on the shoulder like I was a dog who'd fetched a bone. I even kissed her forehead once, and I swear I saw a guilt flash in her eyes for a second. But then she turned away and said, "Text Reese for me. Will you tell him we'll see him Sunday?" I waited until she left the room. I picked up her phone and scrolled through the threads again. There was no recent conversation with Ree, but there were plenty with Trent. One of them said, "Sunday's still good, can't wait." Same condo. I memorized the address. I knew that street near the river, close to where Reese used to rent before he moved out of state. Trent had a condo there now. Of course he did. That Sunday she left in a floral sundress, lipstick on and earrings swinging like wind chimes. "Wish me luck," she said at the door. "For Reese's obnoxious stories or the baby shower games." She laughed, both. Then she was gone. I didn't go inside. I grabbed my keys and followed. She took the same route she always did when she claimed she was going to see her brother, north toward the river, past the old tobacco plant, and through the industrial loop that bled into the nicer parts of town. I followed 2 cars behind, giving her enough space to breathe without ever losing sight of her brake lights. My palms sweated on the steering wheel, not from nerves exactly, but from the kind of cold clarity that sets in when you already know the truth and you're just waiting for proof. She turned down Riverview Lane, a street lined with condos pretending to be upscale, neatly manicured hedges, matching mailboxes, that fake suburban polish that never fooled me. She slowed at a rust-cold building with unit numbers printed on a brass plate by the door. Trent's condo. I pulled over half a block back, parked under a lopsided oak tree, and killed the engine. She sat in her car for a second, checked her reflection in the mirror, reapplied lip gloss. Then she got out, smoothed the back of her dress, and walked to the front door like she belonged there. She didn't even look over her shoulder. That's what struck me. No paranoia, no hesitation, just the boldness of someone convinced she'd never be caught. Or worse, convinced I wouldn't care. I waited 3 hours. I didn't even turn the radio on, just sat there with the windows cracked and the sound of the river in the distance. I counted the people who walked by. A woman with a poodle, 2 kids on bikes, an older man with grocery bags. Not once did I see her come out. The sun dropped lower in the sky, the heat giving way to a cool breeze. And still, I waited. Eventually, around dusk, the door opened. She stepped out laughing. Not just a polite laugh, the kind that made her tilt her head and press a hand to her chest. The kind she used to give me. Trent walked her out. He wasn't even trying to hide it. He stood close, too close, touched her back, said something low that made her laugh again. Then she got into her car and drove off like she was coming back from church. I gave it 5 minutes, then drove home. She was already there when I walked in, flipping through a stack of mail like she hadn't just stepped out of someone else's arms. "How was Reese?" I asked, standing in the doorway with my boots still on. She didn't flinch. "Same as always, obnoxious." She smirked and tossed a utility bill on the counter. "His new girlfriend's a nightmare." She lied without blinking. I wanted to ask what Trent's new cologne smelled like. I wanted to ask how many times she'd used my savings to pay for hotel rooms or gas money or takeout for a man who once left her for a barmaid in Nashville. But I didn't. Because the truth was I wasn't even angry anymore. Something colder had taken root. That's when it clicked for me. She thought I'd never notice, that I'd keep playing the family clown, the harmless, hard-working husband. Everyone could poke fun at over drinks while she played victim in private. They saw me as soft, predictable, too slow to act, too polite to challenge anything that made them uncomfortable. But they were wrong. I'd spent most of my life putting others first, fixing leaky pipes, double-checking door locks, remembering birthdays that no one remembered back. I thought patience was a virtue. I thought loyalty would be rewarded, but all it had done was paint a target on my back and hand them the brush to color me as they pleased. I thought about Ree, about the smirk on his face when he made the toast, the way the others followed suit. I thought about the dinner table and how Dia didn't flinch when they humiliated. The next morning, I changed the locks. I told her the deadbolt had been sticking and replaced it while she was at work. She didn't ask questions. That was her first mistake. She'd gotten so used to my silence. She didn't recognize when it turned into strategy. I created a new folder on my laptop labeled Receipts. I started documenting everything. Dates, times, messages, bank transfers. If I was going to be the clown in their circus, I might as well gather my popcorn and take notes before I burned the whole tent down. She asked me that night why I seemed distant, just tired. I said, "Long week." She nodded, kissed my cheek, said she appreciated how steady I was. I smiled back. The next time she left to see Ree, I let her. This time, I didn't follow. I stayed home and logged into our joint account, downloading transaction histories. She was using the credit card. We both had access to Uber rides, boutique wine, air freshener, and room service. The receipts didn't lie. Even when she did, she came back late. Said Ree had made her watch a horror movie that gave her nightmares. I nodded. Sounds like him. She kissed my forehead again and went to shower. I looked at the hallway mirror and barely recognized the man staring back at me. Not because he was broken, but because for the first time in a long time, he wasn't confused. He wasn't wondering. He wasn't waiting for permission to feel betrayed. He knew, and he had a plan. It started with a knock on my office door. 3 slow taps. I looked up from the production log I was reviewing, and there stood Angelo, my supervisor, shoulders stiff, mouth tight. He wasn't the kind of man who made small talk when something was wrong. His background was military, structured, focused, no wasted words. So when he opened the door and said, "Miles, got a minute?" I knew it wasn't about inventory counts or the malfunctioning conveyor belt on line 3. I followed him down the hallway past the HR office and into a side room they usually reserved for team briefings. Except today, there was no whiteboard or safety poster pinned up. Just a table, 2 chairs, and a sealed manila folder waiting like a trap. Angelo gestured for me to sit. He stayed standing, leaning slightly against the wall, arms crossed. "I'll get to it quick," he said, looking me straight in the eye. "Someone filed a complaint." I blinked. "A what?" He reached for the folder, opened it, and slid a few printed pages across the table. Says, "You've been erratic, disrespectful, aggressive." There's mention of inappropriate jokes, questionable decisions on write-ups. Says you've been unfit lately. My stomach dropped. "Who filed this?" He shook his head. "Anonymous, but HR had to bring it to me," said they're looking into it. I scanned the documents. None of it made sense. The incidents were vague, unprofessional tone, overuse of authority, unsubstantiated disciplinary actions. And then I saw something that made the blood drain from my face. One line referenced a comment I had made 2 weeks ago at home in the kitchen, joking with Delea about a coworker who kept falsifying clock-ins. I'd said, half laughing, "At this point, I should just write the damn guy up for being born." That exact phrase was in the complaint. I stared at it like it might change, but there it was, word for word. A joke I made in my own home during dinner, while she laughed and said I was being dramatic. That's when the trap fully closed around me. Only one person could have known that. I looked up at Angelo. "You know me. Do I seem unstable to you?" "No," he said flatly. "That's why I pulled you in before HR did." Something about this feels off. I left the meeting tight-lipped, holding that folder like it was radioactive. My fingers tingled. My brain wouldn't stop spinning. If Dia filed it, then this wasn't just about disrespect anymore. This was a strategy, a calculated move to set a legal foundation. Make me look like the problem, make her exit clean. I got back to my office, shut the door, and sat at my desk without turning on the monitor. I stared at the wood grain, every detail of the past few months flashing through my mind like a film reel. Her silence, her laughter at that dinner, the text to Trent, the lies, and now this HR complaints using language lifted straight from our private conversations. I opened our home computer that night while Delea was out picking up wine. She'd left her email open, didn't even bother logging out. I searched for keywords, found drafts, templates, notes she typed to herself. Make it seem gradual. Document Miles's attitude. Another draft read, "If I'm going to file, it needs to seem like I've tried talking to him." There was even a timeline she'd mapped out. Meetings, purchases, dates she'd tell people she felt unsafe. It was all there, like a war plan. She was building a case. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about love lost. This was a setup, legal, financial, complete. She was laying the groundwork to walk away clean while burying me under a pile of HR allegations and marital complaints. If she could paint me unstable, take a few witness statements from her side of the family, and frame herself as the calm, rational partner, she could leave with the money, maybe even the house. She knew me well enough to predict my moves. She counted on my silence, on my tendency to avoid confrontation, on the fact that I worked long hours and barely had time to breathe, let alone notice a carefully orchestrated character assassination unfolding around me. But she underestimated one thing. I pay attention. When the stakes are high enough, I stop blinking. I stop reacting. I listen. I calculate. And when I decide to respond, I don't raise my voice. I raise the ground they think they're standing on. I started collecting screenshots of messages, withdrawals from our joint account, copies of her notes. I backed up my work communications, including the positive performance reviews Angelo had given me. I installed a home surveillance system, not because I thought she'd do anything reckless, but because I needed records proof. She came home late again that week, tipsy, cheeks flushed from wine or attention or both. I sat at the kitchen table reading a work document when she dropped her purse on the counter and said, "Still sulking?" I looked up, just tired. She smiled without softness. "Maybe you need time off." I stared at her a moment longer than I should have. "Maybe I do." She went upstairs, humming. I went back to my folder. It was a Wednesday night when I noticed the first withdrawal. Nothing dramatic, just $120 at a boutique I'd never heard of, listed under LC Home and Gifts. I stared at the bank statement on my phone while the TV played some documentary I wasn't watching. Dia was upstairs in the shower. I scrolled down. Another one. 185, then 212. More small charges scattered over the past few weeks. One or two wouldn't have raised a flag. But the longer I scrolled, the more they started to add up. I logged into the joint account from my laptop, sorted the activity by date, then by vendor, then by amount. When the math hit the four-figure mark, I pushed back from the table and stared at the screen like it might confess something. $9,780. 22 had disappeared over the last 6 weeks, spread across wine purchases, boutique stores, digital payments, and one large transfer labeled only as personal reimbursement. I leaned back in my chair, my chest tight. The kind of tight that doesn't come from panic, but from realization. I had built this account. Every overtime shift, every bonus I didn't spend. Every Christmas, I skipped a new jacket to make sure her gift stayed wrapped in silver foil. That money was the last thing I thought we had in common. Something untouched, something we could still say we shared until now. When she came downstairs, towel around her hair and lotion on her legs, I asked calmly, quietly, "Delea, have you made any big purchases lately?" She barely paused. "What?" "Just noticed some money moving out of the account. Boutique stores, cash transfers." She waved her hand like she was swatting at a fly. "Oh, that. Yeah, just paying down some debt. You know that old credit card from college?" I finally decided to clear it. I nodded slowly. "Almost 10 grand. Her tone sharpened. "Jesus, are you monitoring every dollar now? You've never cared before." "I didn't have to," I said. She scoffed. "God, you're acting like a jealous lunatic. Do you want receipts? You want to see every tampon and toaster I've ever bought?" I kept my voice level. "No, just the debt." She grabbed her wine glass and stalked out of the room. "You've changed, Miles, and not in a good way." The front door slammed a minute later. No purse, no shoes, just gone. Like she needed air because being asked for basic transparency was now offensive. But I didn't follow. I didn't call. I just sat there and reopened the account history. I printed everything, every line, every receipt. I highlighted the biggest charges and stuck them in the folder I'd labeled for later. The lies weren't even the worst part. It was the confidence behind them. The assumption that I'd never ask, never look, never notice. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed while she tossed and turned beside me, muttering something about the AC being too cold. At 3:17 a.m., she finally stilled. I got up, walked down to the garage, and opened the locked drawer where I kept the backup phone we used during our road trips. No one else had the number. I charged it, installed a secure app, and began copying documents over quietly, methodically. The next day at work, I barely said 2 words to anyone. Not because I was angry, but because my mind had crossed into another place. A place where everything was measured, where emotion had no room anymore. I was calculating now. I wasn't trying to fix the marriage. I wasn't even trying to understand it. I was gathering what I needed for the end. I checked her credit history when I got home. It wasn't hard. I'd done our taxes for 8 years. Knew her passwords, her login, her last 4 digits. There was no credit card from college, no debt. Her credit was clean, pristine, practically glowing. The only recent activity was a soft pull for a condo lease and both her name and someone else's. I stared at the screen until my hands went numb. The second name, Trent Morrison. They'd applied for a lease together last month. The same month, she'd laughed when Reese called me a joke. The same month, she'd stopped calling me babe and started using silence like a scalpel. I sat there in my office, the lights off, and stared at the glow of the screen. My ears rang. I felt like I'd swallowed gravel. I clicked open my screenshot app and saved everything. The lease inquiry, the timestamp, the broker's information. I opened her text messages that night after she fell asleep, curled up like a child in the bed we bought on a 36-month financing plan. There it was, her last message to Trent. We're good to move in next month. He hasn't even noticed. Not if, not maybe, not let's wait and see. She was gone in every way but physical. The body beside me wasn't mine. The smile she wore at dinner was meant for someone else. She had moved on with another man using my name, my money, and my trust like stolen tools to build a new home. They weren't just having an affair. They were building a life, and they thought I hadn't noticed. But I had. And I wasn't going to beg her to stay. I was going to make sure she never forgot how it ended. The first thing the mechanic said when I walked back into the garage was, "You're not going to like this, man." It was a simple oil change, nothing major. I brought in the truck on a Saturday because I figured the distraction would keep my head straight. The cabin still smelled like her. Dea's citrusy perfume lingering in the fabric, no matter how many times I left the windows down. I didn't expect anything out of the ordinary. I just needed an hour of waiting room radio, stale coffee, and the kind of peace that came from men with grease under their nails talking about cars, not betrayal. "What's up?" I asked, leaning against the service counter. The guy scratched the back of his neck and nodded toward the bay. "Passenger seat. Found a bag. Figured I'd let you check it before we touched anything." I frowned. "A bag?" "Yeah, like a little makeup pouch, kind of wedged under the seat. Thought it might be yours." I followed him back, heart already picking up speed. My truck was mine, my one place, my shell, the only thing no one else really touched except her, apparently. He opened the passenger door and reached down. His hand came up with a small navy blue bag with a gold zipper. Sleek, clean, not dusty like it had been there for long. He handed it to me, then backed off like he already knew he didn't want to know what was inside. I opened it. First thing I saw was a hotel key card. Plastic, no branding, just a tiny barcode and room number written in marker. 327. Next, a crumpled receipt from La Jolla and 2 entree, 2 drinks, 1 dessert. Paid in cash. Then came the note, folded twice, tucked into the side pocket. "Tonight was magic. Let's never stop. T." That letter T hit me like a nail through the chest. I didn't need to ask. I didn't need handwriting analysis. My blood didn't need more proof. T was Trent. And this wasn't just emotional anymore. This was physical, tangible. Real. She'd been in my truck, with his bag, driving to that hotel, lying about baby showers and brotherly visits while carrying around tokens of their nights together like souvenirs. I closed the pouch slowly, fingers steady. My insides were screaming, but my face didn't flinch. I nodded to the mechanic, thanked him, and walked back to the counter like it was just another Saturday. But everything had changed. When I got home, Delia was in the kitchen again, barefoot, wearing that same old hoodie she always pulled on after one of her girl nights. Her hair was down, lips glossed, and she smelled like a perfume I hadn't bought her in over 2 years. Joe Malone's Orange Blossom, a scent she claimed gave her headaches. I stood in the doorway and watched her for a moment. She was dancing slightly, humming to herself as she stirred a pot, like life was beautiful, like her lies hadn't unraveled and spilled into the cracks of my truck. She turned and smiled when she saw me. "Hey, babe, want to taste this?" "Where you coming from?" I asked. She blinked, then shrugged. "Reese's. He wanted help picking a birthday gift for Mom." She lied so easily, it chilled me. I nodded and stepped forward, kissed her forehead. "Smells good," I said. She laughed. "Wait till you taste it." I used real garlic this time. I let her serve me, let her talk, let her think nothing had changed. And while she chattered about her brother's lack of style and her mother's obsession with planters, I nodded and listened. But behind my smile, I was cataloging everything. The inflections, the tells, the language she used when she was weaving new fiction. She never once mentioned the hotel, never once admitted she'd been anywhere near La Jolla. She didn't know I had the bag. She didn't know I'd already scanned the receipt, photographed the keycard, and emailed the images to myself in case she lost them later. After dinner, she got a phone call. Trent, I assumed. She took it upstairs, said it was Lena from work. I gave her 15 minutes. Then I followed, slow and quiet, stopping at the bottom of the stairs to listen. She was whispering. "No, he didn't notice, I swear. I left it in the back." "Yeah, probably rolled under. I'll check tomorrow." She paused, then laughed. "I know. I miss you too." I walked back to the living room, sat on the couch and stared at the family photo on the wall. Us at Myrtle Beach 2 years ago, me in cargo shorts, her in that red bikini wrap, both smiling like we hadn't seen the cliff ahead. She came down 20 minutes later, plopped beside me inside like it had been a long day. "Lena's losing it," she said, eyes on the TV. "Her boss is nuts." I wrapped an arm around her, let her rest her head on my chest. "Sounds rough," I murmured. She nodded. "Thanks for understanding." I kissed the top of her head always, but I wasn't understanding anything anymore. I was documenting. I was preparing. That night, while she slept with one hand sprawled across my side of the bed, I went to the garage again, pulled out the flash drive, labeled the next folder, passenger seat, uploaded the photo of the note, the receipts, the keycard image. Then I opened a new Word doc and began writing down everything. Times, dates, dialogue. I even included her quote from the phone call. He didn't notice. I swear she was right. Until now I hadn't noticed, but now I saw everything. And soon, so would she. Rel Greer's name had come up 3 times in the last 2 years. Once from a guy at work who said she handled his nasty divorce and left his ex with nothing but a futon and a microwave. Once in a local article titled, "10 attorneys you'd want on your side, not against you." And once, oddly enough, in a joke Delia made after a girls' brunch. "If I ever needed to clean house," she'd said, sipping her mimosa, "I'd call Michelle." Everyone laughed except me. I'd remembered the name. Her office sat above a wine shop on Frankfurt Avenue, quaint old brick with a row iron staircase and a green door that didn't advertise anything but a small plaque that read, Granger Law. No receptionist, no logo, just an old bell that chimed when I pushed the door open. Inside it was colder than expected. Clean lines, gray walls, a single orchid on the windowsill. Relay herself was in the corner office. Gray blazer, sharp jawline, glasses perched low on her nose, reading a document with the kind of focus that made you forget to breathe. She looked up when I knocked like she already knew I'd come. "Miles Carter," she said, standing. Her handshake was firm. "You've got the eyes of a man who's done waiting." I didn't argue, just sat down and opened the folder I brought. No small talk, no pleasantries. I pulled out the printouts, screenshots of Dia's texts, the photo of the bag, the receipts, the timeline. I slid everything across the desk, one piece at a time, laying out the narrative like an autopsy. "I need to end this," I said, "but I want it clean, and I want her to cost them." She didn't blink, just started reading. 10 minutes passed without a word. She examined everything like it was a case file, like the ink itself could testify. Then she looked up. "You want to make this quiet or devastating?" "Both," I said, in that order. She nodded slowly. "Infidelity, financial misconduct, possible cohabitation during the marriage, and digital documentation tying it together. That gives us leverage, significant leverage. And if you want to file on the grounds of marital fraud and depletion of shared assets, we can do that too. I also want a restraining order," I added. "Not for her, for him. He's been harassing me through her indirectly, showing up in my space, riding in my truck." She scribbled something in her notes. "Then we'll cite emotional distress and third-party interference. But we need to move quickly. Once she realizes what you've seen, she'll lawyer up." "She won't see it coming," I said. Relay smiled. "Then let's keep it that way." By the end of the hour, we had everything set in motion. Divorce papers filed under fault-based grounds, financial forensics to trace the withdrawals, a motion to freeze our joint accounts until the settlement, a formal rebuttal to the HR complaint drafted and ready to send to Angelo with evidence proving Dia's involvement in the restraining order request, signed and sealed. I signed the paperwork with a pen that felt too light for what it meant. My hand didn't shake, not once. When I walked out of that office, the sun was glaring off the windshield of my truck like a spotlight. I climbed in, started the engine, and exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. The plan was in motion now. No more guessing, no more waiting for her to slip. I had the truth, the timeline, and the receipts. Delia still thought I was the man who had been before I broke. She was about to learn how wrong she'd been. That night I got home before her. I sat at the kitchen island sipping coffee, the document still fresh in my mind. When she walked in, smiling, cheeks flushed, I didn't look up right away. I just listened to her toss her keys in the bowl, kick off her shoes, and call out, "You're home early. Felt like cooking," I said. She wandered in, eyebrows raised. "You cooking? Is it the apocalypse?" I smiled. Something like that. She leaned over the pot, inhaling the steam. "Smells good. Is that rosemary?" I nodded, stirring slowly. "You should sit. We've got things to go over." Her smile wavered just slightly. "What things?" "Budget stuff," I said casually. "Taxes, maybe a few receipts." She hesitated, then sat across from me, fingers drumming the counter. "Okay." I placed a red flash drive on the table. She looked at it, then back at me. "What's that?" "Everything," I said. "Every lie, every charge, every message. It's backed up already, so you don't need to worry about deleting it." Her face palled. "Miles, what is this?" "I met with Michelle Granger today," I said, still stirring the pot. "Divorce has been filed. Accounts frozen. HR complaint rebutted. Your boyfriend. He's flagged for interference. By the end of the week, the restraining order will be in his mailbox. Delia blinked like the words hit her a few beats too late. You're not serious.
Oh, I'm very serious.
She reached for the flash drive. I slid it back. That's for the judge, I said. But I wanted you to see it first. She stood abruptly, knocking over her chair. This is insane. You're making a mistake. I turned off the stove. No, I made a mistake staying quiet for this long. She stared at me, breathing shallow, hands twitching like she didn't know where to place them. You're blowing up our life over what? Jealousy? No, I said. Over betrayal. Over manipulation. Over the fact that you used my truck, my money, and my silence to build a future with someone else. A man you swore was just a chapter you closed. Turns out you were writing a sequel. Her voice dropped. I didn't think you'd ever fight back. I know, I said, stepping past her. That's what makes this so satisfying. I left her in the kitchen, her breath shallow, eyes glassy, staring at the life unraveling in her hands. She didn't chase me, didn't scream, just stood there like a statue in a burning room. The next morning, Michelle sent the documents to her office, her email, and her parents. I changed the garage code, had her access removed from all joint accounts. My paycheck was rerouted, every inch of my life secured, backed up, restructured. Delia was in shock, and Trent, well, his name would show up in court before he ever set foot near my home again. The game had shifted, and I no longer played the fool. She didn't say a word the moment she stepped into the kitchen and saw it. The plain white envelope sitting right there on the marble counter next to the coffee maker. No name, no stamp, just one sharp corner slightly curled as if it had been waiting all day to deliver the blow. I didn't greet her. I stayed leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, my eyes calm in a way that made her uneasy. She took one look at the envelope, then looked at me. Her hand hovered over it for a moment before she picked it up, lips pressing into a flat line. What is this? She asked, her voice too smooth, trying to sound unbothered. I didn't answer. She opened the flap and pulled out the papers inside. The divorce petition, the asset freeze confirmation, the notarized notice of our joint account audit, and a printed screenshot of her text message to Trent. Her expression cracked just slightly, a twitch near the corner of her mouth. You went through my phone? I shrugged. You left it unlocked. I went through my life. She flipped through the papers in a panic, eyes darting over the legal language, the clipped, efficient language Rel had masterfully assembled. Financial misconduct, marital fraud, intentional deception, infidelity. Jesus, Miles, this is a little dramatic, don't you think? There it was again. Dramatic. The same word she'd used when her brother humiliated me at that dinner, when I confronted her about the withdrawals, when I questioned the missing money, the overnight trips, the lies. But this time, the word didn't land like it used to. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out a flash drive. I walked over to her slowly, deliberately, and laid it gently on the counter next to the folder. She stared at it like it might explode. That's the copy, I said. Screenshots, photos, statements. Everything you've done, everything you said. I wouldn't notice. She opened her mouth, closed it again. I watched her chest rise and fall, her composure thinning by the second. I was going to tell you, she said. But the sentence had no conviction. Nodded, but you didn't. She finally looked up at me. Really looked. You were so detached. You stopped showing up. You worked late. You didn't talk to me anymore. And you texted Trent while I grilled dinner on the porch. You met him in hotels while I paid our bills. You laughed with him the same night you toasted my failure. Her lips trembled. Not from sadness, from realization. She had misjudged the moment, misread the man she thought she could keep in place. "This doesn't have to be ugly," she said. "Oh, but it already is," I replied. She took a shaky breath and dropped into the kitchen chair, the envelope still in her hands. "You blindsided me." I tilted my head. "You applied for a lease with another man. You used our savings to pay for hotel rooms and wine nights while I was scraping grease off my palms and working late to build a life. I thought we were still sharing." "It wasn't supposed to go that far," she whispered, "but it did." Her silence folded around the room like a blanket full of pins. She looked smaller now, shoulders hunched, voice softer, like she was trying to shrink her way out of it. I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I had already won the only fight that mattered, the one for clarity. She tried again. "You're throwing everything away. All these years." I shook my head. "You threw it away. I just finally caught it. Midair." She stood suddenly full of breath, pacing the tile like a tiger testing its cage. "You don't understand how lonely I've been. You don't get what it's like being ignored in your own home. Don't." I cut in, my voice quiet but sharp. "Don't spin this. You weren't lonely. You were bored, and you looked for a better deal. Except now the man you dismissed is the man who's setting the terms." She went cold at that. I saw her face twist between shame and fury. "You're not going to get away with this," she hissed. I raised an eyebrow. "With what?" "Holding you accountable. Showing a judge the paper trail you left wide open. I'll fight this." She said, "You think Relly scares me." I smiled then, just a little. "No, I think the truth does." She stormed off, disappearing into the hallway. I heard drawers slam, then the creak of the closet door. The wheels of her old carry-on thudded against the hardwood floor like punctuation. She came back through the kitchen with a hoodie draped over her arm, a phone charger in her hand, and the expression of someone who just realized she lost control of the narrative. She paused at the door. "Where am I supposed to go?" "You'll think of something," I said. "You always do." She hesitated, then opened the door. As she stepped out, I added, "Your parents will see that flash drive tonight. So will HR. So will the judge." Her hand froze on the doorknob. Then she was gone, just like that. The door clicked shut, and for the first time in what felt like years, the house felt still. No tension pressing against the walls. No background noise of secrets whispered behind bathroom doors. Just silence. Real silence. I walked back into the kitchen and poured myself a drink. Nothing special, just the cheap whiskey I used to keep in the cabinet for cold nights and worse news. I sipped it slow and looked at the empty chair where she'd sat just minutes ago. The envelope still sat on the counter, but the weight of it was gone. It had done its job. That night, her brother Ree sent me a text. Didn't know it had gone that far. I stared at it. 3 seconds. 5. Then I locked my phone and set it face down. No reply, because some things don't deserve one. Let them sit with their silence, just like I had to. Dee's lease with Trent. Voided within the week. Turns out when you submit a full legal complaint detailing financial fraud and misrepresentation during the lease application, brokers listen, especially when you attach the paper trail, the screenshots, the withdrawals, the can't wait to move in together text. The leasing office called me directly. Not because they had to, but because in their words, "We've never seen a situation so cleanly documented." They canalled the lease. The deposit, almost $4,000 from our drain joint account, was forfeit. I didn't smile when I read the confirmation email. I didn't pump my fist. I just folded the printout neatly and placed it in the final folder of my case. One more brick in the wall. she thought she'd scale. Her parents tried calling twice the next day. First Arlene, then Kin. I didn't answer, not because I was angry, but because I had nothing left to explain. They were at the dinner. They heard the toast. They watched me sit there in silence while they toasted Trent, their daughter's ex-boyfriend, the so-called one that got away. They saw their son-in-law, the man who paid for her dental plan, who fixed their sink on a Sunday, publicly humiliated. And they said nothing, laughed even. They chose their silence. Now they could live in it. But I wasn't done. I opened my email, attached the family photo someone took during that dinner. Raise's hand raised in a cheer. Delia mid-laugh her dress, the same one she later sent a mirror selfie of to Trent with the caption, "Did I wear this for you? Maybe." Winky face. I paired that photo with 3 other attachments. 1, her text, "Miss you. Made your favorite cobbler tonight." 2, the screenshot from her application, Coys with Trent Morrison, move-in date pending. 3, in the dinner receipt from La Jolla. Sign in her handwriting. Then I typed 1 line. "You toasted the wrong man." Send it to Dia's family group chat. Send it to HR. Sent it to her boss. She didn't respond, but Reese did. This is low, Miles. I left that one on read. 2 days later, HR formally dropped the complaint against me. I was called into Angelo's office again. Same folder on the table, but this time he looked different. Not stiff, not nervous, just quiet, measured. "Why didn't you tell me it came from your wife?" I leaned back in the chair. Would it have mattered? He paused. Not to me, but it would have changed how they handled it. He pushed the folder aside. "We've cleared your record. Formal apology from corporates in the works. You're solid, Miles. You've got more grit than most men I know." That landed differently. Not because I needed the praise, but because it came from someone who'd seen me beyond the jokes, beyond the dinner table mockery. Angelo had watched me come in early, leave late, cover for sick coworkers, and handle equipment breakdowns on weekends. He saw the man, not the puppet everyone else tried to make of me. I stood, shook his hand. "Appreciate that." He smiled, then added, "There's a promotion coming up. Regional Ops Lead. You should apply." Thought I'd already been made the joke of the last one, I said dryly. He didn't laugh. Then it's time they stopped laughing. I applied the next morning. Got the call 3 weeks later. Promoted again. No dinner this time. No family toast. Just a quiet morning, a new badge, and a corner office that smelled faintly of oil and coffee. I hung up my coat, sat at my new desk, and looked out the window at the plant floor. Not because I missed it, but because that's where I came from. Every bruise, every callus, every stupid joke, they all built the man sitting in that chair. Delia, she moved back into her childhood bedroom. The same one with the posters still tacked to the wall and the shelf full of old trophies she never earned but always bragged about. Trent didn't stick around. That's what her cousin Jasmine said, anyway. He bailed after the lease fell through. Claimed he wasn't ready for the drama. That word again, drama. They called it drama. I called it documentation. Delia texted once, just 1 line. "I didn't think you'd ever fight back." I stared at it for a long while. Thought about replying. Thought about typing out all the things I wanted to say during those months. She dismissed me. During the dinner where she laughed at me during the night. She came home smelling like another man's cologne. But I didn't send anything. I just blocked her number because the joke ended the moment I stopped laughing. 2 months later, I pulled up to the Briarwood parking lot in a car I never thought I'd own. Black Ford Explorer, paid in full. Leather seats, backup cam. Something reliable. Something mine. As I stepped out, someone from the plant floor waved. New guy, Dante. Young, eager, probably still had grease under his nails. "Hey, Mr. Carter, call me Miles," I said. He jogged over, Heard you're the reason Ree Hawthorne won't show his face at company events anymore. I smiled.
Is that so?
He laughed. Words. I patted his shoulder. Don't believe everything you hear. But yeah, maybe believe that one. I climbed the stairs to my new office. The hallway smelled like fresh paint. The nameplate on the door gleamed in the light. Miles Carter, Regional Operations Lead. I opened the door, walked in, and took a deep breath. This was mine. All of it. Not because it was handed to me, but because I earned it. Through silence, through grit, through knowing when to let people talk and when to let them watch you rise. That afternoon, Rel called. Just got the final confirmation. She said, "Divorce is finalized, settlements locked." She walked away with exactly what you wanted her to. Nothing. Less than nothing, she said. Her name's removed from the house, car accounts. The court ruled in your favor on every point. Judge even made a comment about your comprehensive preparation. You might have missed your calling. I chuckled. Nah, this one was personal. Well, Rel said, her voice laced with satisfaction. You took your pain and turned it into precision. I don't see that often. Thanks, Rel. She paused. You ever need anything else? You call me. Hell, I'd hire you. I hung up and stared out my window. Across the parking lot, I saw Delea standing next to her dad's car, arms folded, eye scanning the building like she wasn't sure if she wanted to come in or keep walking. She didn't see me, but I saw her. She looked different now. Not the woman who glided through rooms with smug confidence. Not the woman who made jokes with her family at my expense. She looked like someone waiting for permission that wasn't coming. I watched her stand there for 2 more minutes. Then she turned and got into the car, drove away. She never came back. That evening, I stopped at the liquor store by the old railroad tracks, picked out a bottle I'd only ever seen other people afford. A celebration, not for the divorce, but for surviving it with my dignity intact. When I got home, I opened the bottle and poured 2 fingers' worth into a glass. I sat on the back porch, the one I'd rebuilt after the summer's storm 2 years ago. The one Delea said was a waste of a weekend. It didn't feel wasted now. The sky was that soft orange pink you only see in Kentucky before a storm or a turning point. I leaned back, glass in hand, and breathed in the quiet. My quiet. No text buzz, no games, no lies. Just me. A man they laughed at, a man they underestimated, a man who doesn't beg anymore. I didn't toast the moment. Didn't need to because the real toast was in the silence. The joke was over, and I was no one's punchline anymore.